Elena Rivera woke to the sound of holographic notifications chiming softly against her bedroom window. Dawn light filtered through the reinforced glass of her lakeside cottage, illuminating dust motes that danced in air recycled by an aging purification system. She silenced the notifications with a wave of her hand, bill reminders, mostly, and one message from Victoria's personal AI assistant confirming tonight's event. As if she could forget, beside her bed, Mia's nature drawings covered the wall in actual paper and ink, an anachronism that would horrify Victoria's circle. Her daughter preferred sketching wolves and eagles by hand rather than using the Neuralink art programs every other 8-year-old favored. Elena had stopped apologizing for it. She found Mia in the kitchen, surrounded by her collection of banned books, actual physical books with pages and spines, salvaged from estate sales before they were digitized and discarded. The girl sat cross-legged on the floor, absorbed in a 20th century wildlife guide, her neural implant deliberately powered off. The implant's dormant light pulsed faintly at her temple, a small act of rebellion Elena both encouraged and worried about. "We have to go tonight," Elena said, starting the coffee maker. The machine sputtered, decades old, held together with parts she'd fabricated herself. Mia looked up, her eyes, so much like Elena's own, clouding with resignation. "Grandpa's status elevation party, Elena poured coffee into a chipped mug, refusing to upgrade to the thermal-regulated smart cups Victoria kept sending. "He's receiving his legacy builder certification." "It's a big deal, for him or for Aunt Victoria?" Elena smiled despite herself. Mia understood too much for 8 years old. "Both, probably." The legacy builder certification was Antonio's crowning achievement, a government designation reserved for citizens whose entrepreneurial contributions had shaped infrastructure development across 3 continents. The ceremony would be broadcast across the neural network, viewed by millions, immortalized in the digital archives. Victoria had been orchestrating the event for months, ensuring maximum social capital extraction. Elena's own social credit score hovered in the lower percentiles, a consequence of her dropout from the legal profession 5 years ago. She'd been on track for partner at Morrison Chen, one of the mega firms that drafted policy for the continental governments. Then she'd walked away, filed for divorce, and moved into this cottage with its failing systems and its view of untouched forest. The forest that Victoria wanted to demolish. Elena's tablet buzzed, her brother Robert, the middle child, video calling from his surgical suite. His face appeared, half obscured by the holographic overlay of patient vitals he was monitoring during a procedure. "You're going tonight," he said. "Not a question, I said I would. Victoria's been telling people you'll embarrass Dad. Showing up in your salvage yard Jeep, dressed like a," he caught himself. "Just wear something appropriate." "I'll wear what I always wear." Robert's jaw tightened. "Why do you do this? Make everything difficult?" "I'm not making anything difficult. I'm showing up." "That's what you asked." "Elena, I'm not arguing about this, Rob. Tell Victoria I'll be there." She ended the call before he could respond. Mia had moved to the window, watching a family of deer navigate the edge of the property. The animals still came here, to this pocket of wilderness that had somehow escaped development. They wouldn't much longer if Victoria's resort project went through. "Mom?" Mia's voice was small. "Are they going to be mean tonight?" Elena joined her at the window, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Probably. But we know who we are, right? We know what matters." "I know." Mia leaned into her. "But sometimes I wish what matters to us mattered to them too." Elena had no answer for that. Victoria Rivera Ashford lived in a residential complex that required 3 separate biometric scans just to enter the lobby. Elena's Jeep, a 2047 model held together with aftermarket parts and determination, looked obscene parked among the sleek autonomous vehicles that lined the curved driveway. A valet bot approached, paused as it scanned her vehicle's outdated recognition chip, then retreated in what Elena could have sworn was mechanical confusion. Inside, the atrium soared 50 feet high, every surface embedded with microdisplays showing curated content, Victoria's real estate empire, her husband's family lineage, their son Brandon's athletic achievements at the private academy for excellence. The displays shifted and reformed like digital wallpaper, ensuring every visitor understood exactly who they were dealing with. Elena carried the cake she'd made, chocolate, Mia's favorite, in a recycled container. She watched Victoria's house AI scan it, probably checking for contraband or biological hazards. Before allowing her to proceed to the kitchen, Victoria stood at the center island, managing the evening's logistics through her neural interface. Her eyes had that distant, glazed quality that meant she was processing multiple data streams simultaneously. When she noticed Elena, she blinked back to single-focus awareness, and her smile was all teeth. "Elena, you're early. And you brought something homemade. How authentic, it's Mia's birthday next week." I thought she could share with her cousins. Brandon won't eat anything that hasn't been nutritionally optimized, but I'm sure we can find somewhere to put it." Victoria gestured vaguely toward a corner of the counter. Where the cake would sit, forgotten, Elena set it down carefully. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the preparations on the back lawn, a stage with holographic projection capabilities, seating for 200 guests, catering stations staffed by human servers, a luxury expense meant to signal wealth in an age of automation. "Is Marcus coming?" Elena asked. Victoria's expression hardened. "Marcus made his choice 3 years ago. He's not family anymore, he's still Dad's son." He embarrassed Dad at the Council of Builders Summit. Accused him of prioritizing profit over preservation. In front of the Continental directors, Elena. In front of people whose opinions actually matter. Maybe he had a point. Victoria's laugh was sharp. "Of course you'd think that. You're both so committed to your principles. How's that working out financially?" Elena met her sister's eyes and said nothing. There was nothing to say that wouldn't escalate into an argument, and she'd promised Mia they'd stay calm tonight. "Julian Chen will be here," Victoria said, changing tactics. Her voice took on a calculated casualness. "I don't know if you remember him, he's been trying to connect with you about some photography thing." Quite persistent, actually, Elena remembered. Julian Chen had sent 17 separate requests through various channels, professional network, mutual contacts. Even a handwritten letter that had arrived via drone delivery. She'd ignored all of them. Men like Julian Chen didn't really want her work, they wanted the story of discovering her, the social capital of being her patron. "He's considering a major investment in Dad's resort development," Victoria continued. "Very influential. Very connected. And very single. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I'm not." "No, you're too busy photographing squirrels or whatever it is you do." Victoria's neural implant pulsed as she received an update. "The caterers are here. I need to manage this." "Try not to," she stopped herself. "Just try to blend in tonight, okay?" For Dad, Elena found Mia outside. Sitting alone at the edge of the event space, watching the setup crew position holographic emitters. Her daughter had that look she got when she was trying to be invisible, making herself small. "You okay?" Elena asked. "Brandon's friends are here." Mia gestured toward a group of teenagers clustered near the pool, all of them enhanced with the latest neural implants, their temples glowing with synchronized patterns that indicated they were sharing a private network feed. Brandon stood at the center, his posture radiating the casual confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything. Elena's hands clenched. "Did they say something?" "Not yet. But they keep looking over here. If they do, you come find me immediately." "Promise?" Mia nodded, but Elena saw the resignation in her daughter's face. They both knew how these events went. Antonio Rivera arrived in a vintage car from the 2030s, manually driven, a status symbol more expensive than any autonomous vehicle. He emerged to applause from the gathering guests, his social credit score visible on the displays throughout the venue, 94.7, a number that represented decades of building, influencing, shaping the world's infrastructure. Elena's own score, 37.2, wasn't publicly displayed, but everyone knew. Social credit determined everything: access to services, professional opportunities, even where you could live. Elena's dropout from the legal profession had tanked her score, and her refusal to participate in the personal branding expected of professionals kept it low. She watched her father work the crowd, accepting congratulations, posing for photos that would be instantly shared across networks. He'd built his construction empire from nothing, starting as a manual laborer in the 2010s and ending as a man whose designs shaped 3 continents. Elena had once admired that. Now she wasn't sure what she felt. Elena Rivera. The voice came from behind her, warm and slightly amused. She turned to find Julian Chen, and her first thought was that Victoria's description hadn't prepared her. He was handsome in the way of people who'd had subtle genetic enhancements, symmetrical features, clear skin, the kind of effortless physicality that came from optimized biology. But there was something else, something in the way he looked at her that wasn't the usual calculating assessment she received from Victoria's circle. "Mr. Chen," she said, keeping her voice neutral, "Julian, please. We're practically colleagues, given how many times I've tried to hire you. I'm not for hire, so I've learned." He smiled, not offended. "But I'm persistent. It's a character flaw, or a character trait, depending on your perspective, yours being." Elena studied him. He wore an expensive suit but wore it casually, like it didn't matter. His neural implant was minimal, a choice, she realized, not a limitation. He could afford the latest technology but chose restraint. "I don't know yet," she said. "Fair enough." He gestured toward the displays showing her father's achievements. "Impressive legacy. You must be proud, must I?" Julian's eyebrow raised slightly. "Most people would be. Legacy builder certification is rare. Your father's work has literally shaped how billions of people live, and displaced how many ecosystems in the process." "Ah." Julian's smile widened. "Victoria warned me you were the idealistic one." She probably used a different word, several, actually. "None I'll repeat in polite company." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "But I did my research, Elena. The Weight of Survival, your grisly series. It sold at Christie's Digital Archive for 340,000 credits. The buyer was anonymous, but the commentary praised your ability to capture something authentic in an age of manufactured experiences." Elena's stomach tightened. She'd published that series under a pseudonym, refusing all interviews, declining the invitation to the auction itself. "The work was supposed to speak for itself. How did you know that was mine?" "I'm good at research. It's what I do, find value others overlook." His eyes held hers. "And you, Elena Rivera, are extremely overlooked." Before she could respond, Victoria's voice cut through the conversation. "Julian. There you are. Come meet the council representatives." "Elena, shouldn't you check on Mia?" It wasn't a suggestion. Julian gave Elena a last look, something that felt like a promise, then allowed Victoria to guide him away. Elena watched them go, feeling off balance in a way she didn't like. She found Mia where she'd left her, but now Brandon and his friends had moved closer. The teenagers weren't directly engaging with Mia, but they'd positioned themselves in a loose circle, trapping her at the edge of the seating area. Their neural implants pulsed in synchronization, which meant they were sharing commentary on a private channel. Elena approached quickly. "Mia, help me find seats for the ceremony." "Hey, Aunt Elena." Brandon's voice was friendly, but his eyes were cold. "Mia was just telling us about her school. Public education system, right? Must be interesting." "It's fine, Brandon, I'm sure it is." He glanced at his friends, and Elena saw the micro-expressions that meant they were communicating on their private channel. "We're all at the academy, obviously. Neural integrated curriculum, direct interface learning. But I guess traditional methods have their place." "They do," Elena said evenly. "Like teaching critical thinking instead of just downloading information." One of Brandon's friends laughed, an actual laugh, not a neural shared response. Brandon's jaw tightened. "Mia," Elena said again. "Let's go." They moved away, but Elena felt the teenagers' attention follow them, felt the weight of their private commentary. Mia's hand found hers, squeezing tight. "I hate this," Mia whispered. "I know, baby." Just a few more hours. The ceremony began as the sun set, holographic displays activating across the venue. Antonio took the stage, his image projected 50 feet high, his social credit score visible to everyone. The Continental Director of Infrastructure appeared via hologram, delivering the official certification. and the crowd erupted in applause. Elena clapped dutifully, watching her father's face on the massive displays. He looked proud and tired and somehow smaller than she remembered. When had he gotten old? The dinner service began, 20 courses, each one a demonstration of wealth and access. Elena barely tasted any of it. She was too aware of the conversations happening around her, too conscious of the way other guests glanced at her and Mia, their neural implants undoubtedly pulling up her social credit score, her professional history, her status as the family disappointment. Aunt Margot leaned over during the 5th course. "Elena, dear, when will you give Mia siblings?" "Oh," she paused, as if just remembering. "That's right, you'd need a partner first." "How silly of me," laughter rippled around the table. Polite, carefully modulated laughter. Elena set down her fork. "Mia has everything she needs, Aunt Margot. Including a mother who doesn't measure worth by family size." "Of course, dear. I just worry about her being lonely." "She's not lonely. She's selective about her company." "A useful skill." More laughter, but this time uncertain. Aunt Margot's smile froze. Across the table, Julian caught Elena's eye. His expression was carefully neutral, but something in his gaze felt like approval. Victoria stood, tapping her glass for attention. "Before dessert, I have an announcement. Many of you know about the Riverside Nature Preserve, 200 acres of undeveloped land adjacent to this property. I'm thrilled to share that Rivera Development has secured preliminary approval to transform it into the Riverside Resort and Wellness Center, a flagship property that will showcase sustainable luxury while honoring my father's legacy as a builder who shaped the world." The crowd applauded. Elena's hands remained in her lap. "The project represents everything our family stands for," Victoria continued. "Innovation, excellence, and the courage to improve upon nature itself. Construction begins next quarter, and we expect completion within 18 months. Elena felt Mia's hand grip hers under the table. The preserve was where they spent their weekends, where Elena photographed the wildlife that somehow persisted despite the surrounding development. It was the last untouched piece of forest in the region. "Questions?" Victoria asked, her smile radiant. Elena stood. The crowd's attention shifted to her, a wave of neural-linked awareness that made her skin crawl. "What about the endangered species documentation?" Elena asked. "The preserve is home to 17 species on the Continental Watch List." Victoria's smile never wavered. "We've hired the best environmental consultants. They'll ensure compliance with all regulations. Any displaced animals will be relocated to approved habitats. Relocated animals have a 70% mortality rate in the first year. That's a very specific statistic." "Where did you read that?" "I didn't read it. I documented it." Elena felt every eye in the venue on her. "I've been photographing that preserve for 5 years. I have evidence of breeding populations, migration patterns, habitat dependencies. That land can't be replaced." Victoria's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "How touching that you found a hobby. But environmental assessments are conducted by licensed professionals with actual credentials, not hobbyists with cameras." Elena's work sold at Christie's for over 300,000 credits, Julian said suddenly. His voice was quiet but carried clearly in the silence. "Her documentation has been cited in 3 continental conservation reports." "I'd hardly call that a hobby." The crowd's attention swiveled to Julian like a searchlight. Victoria's smile became strained. "Julian, how kind of you to be so informed. But this is a family matter, is it?" Julian leaned back in his chair. His posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "Because I was under the impression this was a public announcement about a development project that will impact protected ecosystems. Or is environmental law suddenly a family matter?" The silence stretched. Elena felt something shift in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Elena's quite the philosopher," Victoria said, recovering. "She makes about as much money as one too." Julian laughed, a genuine sound of delight. "I don't know about that. I've been trying to hire her as creative director for my conservation investment portfolio for 8 months. She keeps turning me down. Turns out people with actual principles don't chase money." Novel concept. The crowd stirred. Elena felt heat rise to her face, not from embarrassment but from something else, something she didn't want to examine too closely. Coffee tomorrow, Julian said, looking directly at her. Not business. Just two people having a conversation about what matters. Unless you're going to tell me no for the 18th time, Elena met his eyes. There was challenge there, and interest, and something genuine beneath the performance. I don't photograph egos, Mr. Chen. They're too large to fit in my frame. The table erupted, gasps, laughter, shocked silence. Julian's grin widened. Most people try to flatter me to get my attention. You're the first to insult me into fascination. He raised his glass toward her. This is a new strategy, and I'm professionally obligated to inform you, it's working. Before Elena could respond, Mia stood abruptly. Excuse me. I need to use the bathroom. Elena started to rise, but Victoria waved her off. Brandon, show your cousin to the guest house facilities. Don't let her get lost. Brandon nodded, smirking. Several of his friends stood to follow. Elena watched them go, unease prickling at the base of her spine. Something was wrong. She knew it in her bones, the same instinct that warned her when predators stalked her in the wilderness. She excused herself, following the sound of teenage laughter toward the lake. Elena found them at the lake's edge. The dock stretched into darkness, lit only by bioluminescent strips embedded in the synthetic wood, another expensive touch Victoria had insisted upon. Brandon and his friends had Mia cornered against the railing, their neural implants pulsing in synchronized rhythm, a private network excluding her completely. Brandon's voice carried across the water. Your mom used to be somebody, you know. Before she dropped out. My mom says she could have made partner at Morrison Chen. Now she takes pictures of squirrels, one of his friends laughed. Does she pay rent in acorns? Mia stood rigid, her hands clenched at her sides. Even from a distance, Elena could see her daughter fighting tears. Fighting the urge to run. My mom does what she loves. She's not afraid to be herself. Yeah, well, being yourself doesn't pay very well, does it? Brandon stepped closer. Is that dress from a thrift store? My mom donates there, Brandon. Elena's voice cut through the darkness. She walked toward them slowly, forcing herself to stay calm despite the rage building in her chest. Mia, come here. Brandon turned, his expression shifting from cruel to innocent in a microsecond. Aunt Elena. We were just talking about school. Comparing curriculums, I'm sure you were. Elena reached Mia, placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. The girl was shaking. Mia needs to come inside now. She was telling us about the public education system, one of Brandon's friends said, his implant still pulsing with shared commentary. Sounds really traditional. It is, Elena said evenly. They still teach critical thinking. Novel concept. Brandon's smile froze. His friends exchanged glances, their private channel undoubtedly lighting up with reactions. Elena felt Mia's hand grip her own, squeezing hard. We should get back to the party, Elena said, already turning. Aunt Elena? Brandon's voice stopped her. How much does wildlife photography actually pay? I'm curious. For a school project, Elena turned back slowly. Brandon stood with his hands in his pockets, the picture of casual inquiry. But his eyes were calculating. His friends watched with barely concealed anticipation. Enough, Elena said. Enough for what? Rent? Food? Or do you have to choose? Brandon, that's enough. But Elena's voice lacked the authority to make him stop, and they both knew it. She was the family embarrassment, the cautionary tale. He could push as far as he wanted. I'm just saying, if you ever need help. Brandon gestured vaguely toward the mansion, the party, the wealth surrounding them. My mom's always talking about how worried she is about you and Mia. Living in that old cottage, driving that old car. We could help. If you asked. The offer hung in the air, wrapped in false concern that didn't hide the condescension beneath. Mia's grip on Elena's hand tightened painfully. We don't need help, Mia said suddenly, her voice small but fierce. We're fine, sure you are. Brandon's smile widened. Hey, you know what? You should come swimming with us. The pool's heated. It's really nice. Unless, he paused, as if the thought just occurred to him. Oh, do you have a swimsuit? I could probably find one of my sister's old ones if you need. She doesn't need anything from you, Elena said, her voice harder now. Brandon shrugged, his innocence a perfect mask. Just trying to be nice, Aunt Elena. Family helps family, right? That's what my mom always says. He stepped backward toward his friends, his movements casual. But Elena saw the calculation in his eyes. Saw the moment he positioned himself just right, saw his weight shift. Oops, Brandon said as he bumped Mia, hard enough to send her stumbling toward the railing. Mia's arms windmilled. Elena lunged, but she was too far away, and everything happened too fast. Mia hit the railing, her momentum carrying her over the edge, and then she was falling, the splash as she hit the water impossibly loud in the sudden silence. Elena screamed. She didn't remember jumping, didn't remember anything except the shock of cold water and the frantic search for her daughter in the darkness. The lake was deeper than it looked, colder than she expected, and for a terrible moment she couldn't find Mia. Couldn't see anything except black water and the distant lights from shore. Then she felt fabric, grabbed it, pulled. Mia surfaced, gasping and choking, her dress waterlogged and heavy. Elena wrapped her arms around her daughter, kicked toward the dock, and prayed. They broke the surface near the ladder. Elena pushed Mia up first, climbing after her with limbs that felt like lead. On the dock, Mia coughed up water while Elena held her, both of them shaking violently. Brandon and his friends had vanished. Above them on the terrace, the party had stopped. Guests lined the railing, their faces pale in the decorative lighting, their neural implants probably already sharing footage of the incident across their networks. Elena looked up at them, at Victoria and Antonio and Robert and all the rest, and saw them just watching. Not helping. Not moving, just watching. Then footsteps pounded down the dock. Julian Chin appeared, his expensive jacket already off, and he wrapped it around Mia without hesitation. His hands were steady as he checked her breathing, his voice calm as he asked if she was okay. He didn't look at Elena with pity or judgment. He looked angry. A child was drowning, Julian said, loud enough for the crowd above to hear, and you all stood there. Watching. Victoria came running down the stairs, her heels clicking frantically. Oh my God, Mia, sweetie, are you okay? Elena, what happened? Brandon said they were just playing. Your son pushed her. Elena's voice shook with cold and rage. He pushed her into the lake. Victoria's face cycled through emotions too quickly to track. Brandon wouldn't. That's not, Elena, boys' roughhouse. It was probably an accident. Mia's fine, she's just a little wet. A little wet? Julian's voice was ice. She's 8 years old. The water's 50 degrees. She could have drowned while you people stood up there with your drinks and your networking and watched. How dare you? Victoria started, but Julian cut her off. I dare because I have basic human decency. Something apparently in short supply at this party. He looked at Elena. Get Mia somewhere warm. I'll get your car. Elena, you're overreacting, Victoria said, her voice taking on that reasonable tone Elena hated. Children play rough. Accidents happen. If Mia were less sensitive. Julian repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Your son pushed a child into freezing water and you're blaming the victim. There are names for people like you. Several. None I'll say in front of children. Victoria opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and fled back up the stairs. The guests scattered before her like startled birds. Elena wrapped Julian's jacket tighter around Mia. Her daughter's teeth chattered, but she was breathing normally, and that was all that mattered. Julian had already moved toward the stairs. Presumably to get Elena's jeep, when another commotion erupted at the top of the terrace. A man was pushing through the crowd, his suit soaked from the waist down, water streaming from his clothes. He moved with authority that made people step aside instinctively. When he reached the railing and the light caught his face, Elena's breath stopped. Marcus, her brother, descended the stairs 2 at a time, his expression thunderous. Sorry I'm late, he said when he reached them. Traffic. He wrung water from his sleeve. Also, I was busy diving into the lake from the north side because I saw a child drowning while her family watched from the terrace. The crowd above went silent. Antonio appeared at the railing, his face pale. Marcus? What are you? You said you'd never come back? Marcus crouched beside Mia, his voice gentling. Hey, butterfly. Hey, Mia Mouse. You okay? Mia nodded, still shivering. Marcus looked up at Elena, and she saw 3 years of estrangement dissolve in his eyes. Whatever had driven him away, whatever argument had torn him from the family, none of it mattered in this moment. He stood, facing the assembled guests. Everyone inside. Now, Marcus, this isn't the time, Victoria started, it's exactly the time. Marcus pulled out his phone, the gesture casual but his eyes hard. Because the Rivera family is about to learn what happens when you underestimate the people who actually have values. Julian had returned with Elena's keys and a stack of towels from somewhere. He wrapped one around Elena's shoulders, his hand lingering briefly, concern, connection, something unspoken. Their eyes met, and Elena felt something shift in her chest, something she'd kept carefully locked away for 5 years. Can you walk? Julian asked Mia. Mia nodded. Julian scooped her up anyway, carrying her toward the house like she weighed nothing. Marcus offered Elena his arm, and she took it, grateful for the support because her legs felt like water. They moved as a group, Marcus and Elena and Julian carrying Mia, while the guests parted before them. Elena could feel their stares, could hear the whispered commentary on their private neural channels. Her social credit score was probably plummeting in real time as the incident spread across networks. She didn't care. Inside, the grand living room had been transformed. The fireplace roared with programmed flames, the crystal chandelier refracted light in calculated patterns, and every surface gleamed with the kind of cleanliness that required daily staff. Victoria's house AI had already adjusted the temperature and lighting for optimal comfort. The contrast was stark, Elena and Mia dripping lake water onto antique rugs while the family settled into their designer furniture with drinks in hand. Julian found blankets, wrapped Mia in layers, then positioned himself near Elena in a way that felt protective without being possessive. When his hand brushed her shoulder, Elena felt warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the fireplace. Marcus connected his phone to the room's display system. A satellite image appeared on the wall, 200 acres of forest and wetland, marked with property boundaries. The Riverside Nature Preserve, Victoria, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. You've spent the past year negotiating to develop this land. Dad's legacy project, the Rivera Resort and Spa. Victoria sat forward, her expression wary. It's a sound investment. We're closing next week. No, you're not. The room went still. Elena felt her heart start to pound. What are you talking about? Victoria's voice sharpened. We have a verbal agreement with the seller. You had a verbal agreement. Past tense. Marcus clicked his phone. Legal documents replaced the satellite image. The Riverside Property Trust. Established 3 years ago. He paused, meeting Victoria's eyes. Owner and sole trustee, Marcus Rivera. The room erupted. Victoria shot to her feet. That's impossible. You've been in Seattle, I've been working, Marcus said calmly. Building capital. Investing in projects that matter. And yes, buying land that needed protection. Antonio's voice cut through the chaos. You bought that property? When? How? 3 years ago. For $12 million. Marcus looked at his father. The previous owner was Mrs. Chen, Julian's grandmother. She had one condition: the buyer had to prove they'd protect the land forever. Julian straightened beside Elena, surprise crossing his face. You're the one grandmother talked about. The one who understood. I understood because I had help. Marcus clicked again. The screen filled with photographs, grizzly bears fishing in streams, wolf packs moving through morning mist, eagles nesting in ancient trees. Elena's work. Her photographs. Years of it, documented with timestamps and location data. Elena's hands went numb. She stared at the images, at her own work displayed on this massive screen, and couldn't process what she was seeing. For 2 years. Marcus said, his voice softening as he looked at Elena, I've worked with a wildlife photographer to document every species on that property. Her research became the foundation for a conservation easement application. Marcus, Elena whispered, but no other words would come. Elena, you didn't know, but every photo essay you did, the weight of survival, predators and prey, the last sanctuary, they weren't just art. They were evidence. Scientific documentation of endangered species habitats. He clicked one more time. An official document appeared, stamped with government seals. As of 9 this morning, the state approved permanent conservation protection for the Riverside Preserve. The silence was absolute. It can never be developed, Marcus said. Ever. Victoria made a sound like she'd been punched. You sabotaged us. You deliberately. I saved it. Marcus's voice was steel. There's a difference, Dad's legacy. Victoria turned to Antonio. The Rivera Resort was supposed to put our name on a building nobody needs? Marcus cut her off. Victoria, our name doesn't need a resort. He clicked again. The document on screen updated, showing a new designation, the Elena Rivera Wildlife Sanctuary. Named for the woman who spent 5 years documenting its beauty while her own family mocked her for being broke. Elena couldn't breathe. Tears streamed down her face. And she didn't try to stop them. Mia grabbed her hand, squeezing hard, her own eyes wide with wonder. Marcus crossed to Elena, crouched beside her chair. When you left your law career, everyone said you were throwing your life away. But I watched you, Butterfly. I watched you become the person we all should be. Someone who chose meaning over money. Someone who saw worth in things that can't be bought. Why didn't you tell me? Elena managed, because I needed you to stay pure. The moment you knew, everything would change. Your work had to come from love, not strategy. He looked at Mia. Your mom saved 200 acres of wilderness. She saved habitat for 17 endangered species. And she did it by being exactly who she is. Victoria was on her feet, her face flushed. Dad, say something. Marcus just destroyed a $40 million project. Our investors, our reputation. Antonio sat silent, staring at Elena's photographs on the screen. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. How much? Marcus stood. What? How much did Elena's photographs sell for? You mentioned Christie's. The Weight of Survival sold for 340,000 credits. Predators and Prey for 280,000. The last sanctuary hasn't auctioned yet, but estimates are around 500,000. Marcus let that settle. Over 1 million credits in 2 years. From work she did in a cottage that costs 600 credits a month. Driving a car worth less than Victoria's handbag, Antonio stood slowly, moved to Elena. His hand touched her wet hair, gentle. Your mother and I came from nothing. I built houses with my own hands so our children wouldn't have to. His voice cracked. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what that meant. He looked down at her. You remembered. You built something with your own hands, your art, your integrity, your daughter. You built a life worth living, not just worth showing off. Elena couldn't speak. She could only hold Mia close and cry. Victoria's voice was desperate now. So we just abandoned the resort? Lose millions? Antonio turned to her slowly. We're not losing anything. We never had it. While this played out, Julian had been watching Elena intently. The firelight caught her face, strength and vulnerability combined, tears and quiet power. He leaned toward Marcus, his voice low. I need to ask your permission. Marcus glanced at him, one eyebrow raised. To pursue her. Properly. Not as a business contact or a curiosity. As a woman I very much want to know. Marcus studied him for a long moment. You're serious, profoundly. If you hurt her, that lake will be the least of my problems. I know. Julian smiled slightly. But she's worth the risk. Marcus's expression softened. You don't need my permission. You need hers. And fair warning, she's harder to win than any deal you've ever closed. I certainly hope so, Victoria, cornered and humiliated, lashed out. Fine. Elena's a secret millionaire with a nature preserve named after her. Wonderful. But let's be honest, she's still alone. Still raising a daughter without a father. Still living in that cottage because she's too proud to accept help. Elena stood, fury replacing grief. You're right. I am alone. By choice. Because I'd rather be alone than compromise who I am for your approval. You're just bitter because you couldn't keep a husband. My ex-husband wanted me to be someone I wasn't. Elena's voice was steady now, carrying. He wanted a trophy wife who'd throw parties and smile while he made jokes at my expense. And for 2 years, I tried. I twisted myself into someone unrecognizable. She looked around the room. Then one day, Mia asked why I never smiled anymore. She was 3 years old, and she could see what I'd become. So I chose her. I chose myself. I chose meaning over performance. The room was silent, and you know what? I'm happy. Elena's voice strengthened. Genuinely happy. Can any of you say that? When you're alone at night, when the performance ends, are you happy? Nobody answered. Julian stepped forward, directly into Elena's space. The room faded. I can answer that question, he said quietly. I wasn't. Until about 4 hours ago. Elena looked up at him, caught off guard. What changed? I watched you dive into freezing water without hesitation. I watched you protect your daughter while wolves in designer clothes circled. I watched you stand here, dripping wet, shaking with cold and rage, and speak truth these people spend millions avoiding. He stepped closer. The air between them crackled. I've dated actresses, models, CEOs. I've never met anyone who made me want to be better just by existing. Until you, Mr. Chen, Julian. Say my name, Julian. Elena's voice was breathless. I don't date investors. I don't date people from this world, good. Because I don't want to date you as an investor. He took her hand, right there in front of everyone. I want to date you as a man fascinated by a woman. Who wants to know your stories, understand how you see the world. Who wants to make you laugh and maybe, if I'm lucky, kiss you goodnight and count the hours until I see you again. The room held its breath. Why? Elena whispered. Julian smiled. Because you insulted me and meant it. Because you said no 17 times. Because you live by values I've spent my life searching for. Because when I look at you, I see who I want to become. He leaned closer. And because when you look at me, I feel like I'm worth something real. Before Elena could respond, Mia tugged her sleeve. Mom, is that man going to be my new dad? The room erupted in laughter, genuine, tension-breaking. Julian went red. Elena covered her face. Even Marcus grinned. Julian crouched to Mia's level, serious. I'd have to date your mom first. Take her to nice places. Prove I'm worthy. And then, if she likes me, and you like me, and your Uncle Marcus doesn't throw me in that lake, maybe someday we could talk about it. Do you like animals? Mia asked. I'm learning to. Do you think my mom is the prettiest woman in the world? Julian looked at Elena. Without question, okay. You can date her. But if you make her cry, Uncle Marcus will destroy you. That's the second time I've been told that tonight. I believe it. Victoria couldn't stand the attention shifting away from her event, from her carefully orchestrated narrative. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the emotion in the room. Julian, you can't seriously be interested in. Julian turned to her, and his expression was pure ice. Interested? Victoria, I'm captivated. Enthralled. Completely and utterly fascinated. And the fact that you can't understand why tells me everything I need to know about you. He looked at Antonio. I'm withdrawing from your resort project. But I'd like to discuss funding for the Elena Rivera Wildlife Sanctuary. Education programs, research facilities, conservation internships. Real investment in something that matters. Antonio stared at him for a long moment, then slowly smiled. I think that's an excellent idea. Victoria made a strangled sound and stormed from the room, her heels clicking frantically against the smart floor tiles. The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the crystal in the chandelier. Marcus addressed the remaining family members, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent 3 years building power outside their influence. Here's what happens now. Elena continues her work. The sanctuary gets proper funding. And all of you, every single one of you, will learn to respect people for who they are, not what they own. He turned to his father. Dad, I love you. But I walked away 3 years ago because this family chose status over substance. Tonight, we choose differently. Or I walk away again. Permanently. Antonio's face had aged a decade in the past hour. He looked at Marcus, then at Elena still wrapped in blankets beside Mia, then at the photograph still displayed on the screen. We choose differently, he said quietly. We choose better. Elena stood, helping Mia to her feet. The girl was still shivering despite the blankets and the fireplace and the room's climate control. Elena needed to get her home, into dry clothes, into bed. Needed to process everything that had just happened in a space that felt safe. We're leaving, Elena said. Julian caught her hand as she passed, his fingers warm against her cold skin. Friday. 7 p.m. Let me take you to dinner. Elena hesitated, looking down at their joined hands. Julian, I don't belong in your world, then I'll come to yours. His voice was earnest, almost pleading. Wear whatever you want. Bring Mia if it makes you comfortable. I just want to spend time with you. Please. Elena looked at this handsome, powerful man who was looking at her like she was the only person in the room, the only person who mattered. She thought about all the reasons to say no, all the ways this could go wrong, all the complications it would bring. Then she thought about the way he'd run to help Mia without hesitation. The way he'd defended her to Victoria, the way he looked at her like she was something precious. Friday, she said. But we're going somewhere in my world. And Julian? She stepped closer, close enough to feel his warmth, close enough to see his pupils dilate. Her voice dropped. I don't need rescuing. I don't need fixing. If you're interested in me, it's because you appreciate who I already am. Julian's breath caught. That's exactly why I'm interested. Their faces were inches apart. The family watched. The moment stretched, tension coiling between them like something alive. Then Elena smiled, small, private, just for him, and walked away, Mia's hand in hers. Julian watched her go. His expression somewhere between thunderstruck and elated. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. She's going to make you work for it. Julian grinned, still watching the door Elena had disappeared through. I certainly hope so. The drive home passed in a blur. Mia fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from shock and cold and too much emotion. Elena drove on autopilot, her mind spinning through everything that had happened. The lake. Marcus's return. The sanctuary. Julian, especially Julian, she'd been alone for 5 years, had convinced herself she preferred it that way. Relationships meant compromise, meant twisting yourself into shapes that fit someone else's expectations. She'd done that once and nearly lost herself. Better to be alone than diminished, but Julian didn't feel like diminishment. He felt like possibility. Elena shook her head, focusing on the road. It was one dinner. One conversation. She was getting ahead of herself, building castles from wishes like she was Mia's age instead of 32 with enough scars to know better. Still, when she finally got Mia into bed and stood alone in her small cottage, she found herself touching her lips where Julian's gaze had lingered, remembering the weight of his hand on hers, the promise in his voice. Friday, he'd said. 7 p.m. Elena had 4 days to decide if she was brave enough to say yes to something that might actually matter. The next morning brought a flood of messages. Her neural implant, which she kept powered to minimum settings, buzzed insistently until she finally activated it. 17 notifications, all from people she hadn't heard from in years, former colleagues from Morrison Chen, congratulating her on the sanctuary. Distant relatives she barely remembered, suddenly interested in reconnecting. 3 offers from galleries wanting to represent her work. And 1 message from Julian, "Thank you for Friday. I promise to be perfectly insufferable so you have material to mock me." Elena smiled despite herself, then silenced the notifications and made coffee. Mia appeared in the doorway, looking small and young in her pajamas. "Mom? Did last night really happen?" Elena pulled her daughter into a hug. "It really happened. Uncle Marcus came back." "He did, and we have a sanctuary. Named after you." "We do, and that man Julian wants to date you." Elena laughed. "That part's still under negotiation." Mia pulled back, serious. "Do you like him?" Elena considered the question. Mia deserved honesty. "I think I could. But I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of getting it wrong again. Of choosing someone who wants to change me instead of know me." Mia thought about this. "Uncle Marcus says Julian asked permission to date you. He says Julian was respectful. And scared. Uncle Marcus says men who are scared of hurting you are the good ones." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Uncle Marcus said all that?" "He called this morning. While you were sleeping. He wanted to make sure I was okay." Mia smiled. "He also said if you don't go to dinner with Julian, you're an idiot. But I'm not supposed to tell you that part." Elena laughed, really laughed. For the first time in what felt like years, Marcus called again that afternoon. Elena answered the video call to find her brother in what looked like an expensive hotel suite, mountains visible through the window behind him. "You're still in the area," Elena said. "I'm staying until Friday. Someone needs to make sure Julian doesn't screw this up." "Marcus? He's a good man." "Elena, I wouldn't have worked with him if he wasn't. But he's nervous, which means he's likely to overthink everything and show up with a 12-page presentation on why you should date him." Elena couldn't help smiling. "That does sound like him." "Go to dinner. Let him be nervous. See what happens." Marcus's expression softened. "You deserve good things, butterfly. You always have." Elena's throat tightened. "Why didn't you call?" "These past 3 years, because Dad chose Victoria's vision over everything we believed in. Because staying meant watching you get smaller every family gathering while they mocked you for having integrity. Because I couldn't save the preserve from inside the family. And I couldn't watch them destroy it." He paused. "I should have told you what I was doing." "I'm sorry, you saved it anyway. You saved everything, we saved it. Your work made it possible." Marcus's smile was sad. "Mom would be proud of you." Elena had to look away, blinking hard. They talked for another hour, filling in 3 years of silence. Marcus told her about his work, about building a conservation investment firm that actually prioritized preservation over profit. About finding Julian's grandmother, about the conditions she'd set, about recognizing Elena's work in a Christie's catalog and realizing he had everything he needed to protect the preserve. Elena told him about the lean years after the divorce. About learning to live on almost nothing while building her portfolio. About Mia's fierce independence, about the small triumphs that sustained them. About being happy in a way that looked like failure to everyone else. When they finally ended the call, Elena felt lighter than she had in years. Friday arrived faster than Elena expected. She changed outfits 3 times before Mia finally sat her down with the exasperated patience of someone decades older than 8. "The blue one makes you look like you're trying too hard. Wear the green one. The one that makes your eyes pretty." "I shouldn't be this nervous. It's just dinner, with the man who called you the only person worth knowing." Mia grinned. "Mom, this is like a fairy tale." "Life isn't a fairy tale, baby, maybe not. But Uncle Marcus says Julian is a good man. And Uncle Marcus never says nice things about anyone." Elena chose the green dress, simple, comfortable, nothing fancy but nothing apologetic either. She left her hair loose, kept her makeup minimal. If Julian was coming to her world, he'd get the real version, not some polished approximation. At exactly 7 p.m., a knock sounded at the door. Elena opened it to find Julian in jeans and a casual button-down, no suit, no expensive accessories. He held wildflowers, the kind that grew wild by the roadside, clearly picked himself rather than purchased from some premium florist. I figured roses would be trying too hard, he said. These were growing near your driveway. Hope that's not cheating. Elena took the flowers, genuinely touched by the gesture. It's perfect. Julian's eyes traveled over her, the simple dress, the loose hair, the bare feet, and his breath caught visibly. You're stunning. Heat bloomed in Elena's chest. Before she could respond, Mia appeared at her elbow. Hi, Julian. Are you taking my mom somewhere fancy? Julian crouched to Mia's level. Actually, I was hoping you could recommend somewhere. I'm new to your world, remember? I need a guide. Mia considered this seriously. Mom, take him to Betty's. Elena blinked. The diner? It's your favorite. And they have the best burgers. Mia looked at Julian. Do you like burgers? I love burgers. Then it's settled. Mia hugged her mother, whispered in her ear, he's nervous. Be nice. Then she skipped off toward Marcus, who was taking her for the evening. Julian stood, meeting Elena's eyes. Betty's? You don't have to, Elena, I meant what I said. Your world. Your choice. I'm just happy to be here. Betty's diner occupied a corner lot 3 miles from Elena's cottage, the kind of place that had survived every trend and economic shift through sheer stubbornness and good food. Checkered floors, vinyl booths, a jukebox that actually played physical records. The staff knew Elena by name, and Betty herself, a woman in her 70s who'd owned the place for 40 years, came out from the kitchen when she saw them arrive. Elena. And who's this? Julian Chen. Julian, this is Betty Morrison. Betty sized Julian up with the shrewd assessment of someone who'd seen every kind of customer. Fancy car outside. You treating my girl right? Julian didn't hesitate. I'm trying to. She's not making it easy, which means I'm probably on the right track. Betty laughed, a sound like gravel and warmth. Smart man. I like him, Elena. Don't screw it up. She winked and returned to the kitchen. They slid into a corner booth, and Elena watched Julian take in his surroundings with genuine interest rather than judgment. He picked up the laminated menu, studied the offerings seriously. What's good here? Everything. Betty doesn't serve anything she wouldn't eat herself, then I'm going with burgers and milkshakes. When in Rome, their waitress, a college student named Sarah who babysat Mia occasionally, took their order with barely concealed curiosity. When she left, Julian leaned back against the booth and smiled. Tell me about the first photo you ever took that mattered. Elena hadn't expected the question. Most dates started with work, with accomplishments, with the carefully curated highlights people used to sell themselves. Julian was asking about something deeper. I was 7, she said slowly. My dad took me to one of his construction sites. He wanted to show me what he'd built, this massive commercial complex. Everyone was looking at the building, talking about square footage and profit projections. But I saw a bird's nest in the crane. Baby robins, just hatched. She smiled at the memory. While everyone looked at the building, I looked at the life happening in the margins. The small thing that persisted despite all the noise and disruption. Dad laughed, said I'd never make money being distracted. But my mom understood. She bought me my first camera that Christmas. Julian was listening with complete attention, the kind that made Elena feel like her words actually mattered. She sounds remarkable. She was. She died when I was 19. Breast cancer. Elena's voice caught slightly. Before she passed, she made me promise something. Don't live a life other people choose for you. Don't let anyone make you small, and you kept that promise, eventually. I broke it for 2 years first. Married someone who made me smaller every day. Elena met Julian's eyes. Had Mia, and realized I couldn't teach her to be strong if I wasn't. Their food arrived, giving Elena a moment to collect herself. Julian took a bite of his burger, made an appreciative sound. Betty wasn't lying. This is incredible. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Julian spoke again. I understand that more than you know. My father built an empire. Left me a fortune and a legacy I never asked for. Everyone expects me to be him, ruthless, focused, always closing the next deal, but you're not. No. I'm not. Julian set down his burger. I spent years trying to be, though. Dated the right women, invested in the right companies, said the right things. Performed perfectly for an audience that didn't really see me. He looked down at his hands. Then my grandmother got sick. The one who owned the Riverside property. Before she died, she told me she was disappointed. Not in my success, but in what I'd sacrificed for it. Elena watched emotions flicker across his face. Grief. Regret, something like longing. She said, "You have money but you don't have meaning. You have power but not purpose." Then she told me about selling the land to Marcus, about the conditions she'd set. I found someone who understands that wealth means nothing if you don't protect what matters. And I realized, I wanted to be that person. I wanted to understand what she understood. Julian met Elena's eyes. Then I saw your work in a Christie's catalog. And I've been trying to find you ever since. Why did you really come to that dinner party? Julian laughed, rueful. Honestly? Victoria told me you'd be there. She thought if I met you in person, saw your pathetic life up close, I'd stop asking about hiring you. His smile widened. She couldn't have been more wrong, she usually is. I saw you walk in, no pretense, no performance, just completely present and real. Then you defended yourself with that line about not photographing egos, and I thought, this woman is dangerous to my peace of mind. Elena felt heat rise to her face. Dangerous? Julian leaned forward, his voice dropping. Extremely. Because you make me want things I've never wanted. Quiet mornings and real conversations and a life that means something beyond the next acquisition. His hand moved across the table, fingers brushing hers. The touch sent electricity up Elena's arm. You make me want to be someone worth knowing, not just someone worth networking with. Elena turned her hand over, letting their palms meet. You're already worth knowing. You just couldn't see it through all the performance. They finished dinner talking about everything, childhoods and dreams, failures and small triumphs, the million tiny details that make up a life. Julian told her about learning to code as a teenager, about the satisfaction of solving problems that seemed impossible. Elena told him about tracking wolves through fresh snow, about the patience required to photograph wild things without disturbing them. They talked until Betty started giving them pointed looks and Sarah began sweeping around their booth. Julian paid the check over Elena's protests, leaving a tip that made Sarah's eyes go wide. Outside, the night air was cool and clear. Stars glittered overhead, undimmed by city lights this far from the urban center. Julian walked Elena to her jeep, then paused, clearly gathering courage. Elena, I need to be honest with you. Elena tensed, expecting the inevitable complications. The reason this couldn't work, the careful extraction, the gentle rejection. I've dated a lot of women, Julian said. But I've never felt like this. Like I want to know everything about you. What you dream about, what scares you, what makes you laugh at 2 a.m. I want to meet you in your world and show you mine and build something entirely new together. He stepped closer. And I'm terrified because I'm very good at business but apparently terrible at this. I can negotiate billion-dollar deals but I can't find the words to tell you how extraordinary you are. Elena's breath caught. Julian, I want to kiss you. I've wanted to kiss you since you insulted me at that dinner table. But I need you to know, this isn't casual for me. If I kiss you, I'm all in. Completely. And I don't do that. Ever. Until now. Elena looked at this man who'd defended her to her family, who'd carried Mia from the lake, who'd spent the evening asking real questions and listening to real answers. This man who made her feel seen in a way she'd forgotten was possible. Then kiss me, she whispered. Julian cupped her face with both hands, gentle and reverent. The kiss started soft, tentative, like he was afraid she might break or disappear. Then Elena's hand slid into his hair and the kiss deepened. It was passionate but not rushed, hungry but controlled, and when they finally broke apart both were breathing hard. Julian rested his forehead against hers. I'm in so much trouble. Elena smiled against his mouth. Why? Because I'm falling for you. Fast and hard and completely. Is that a problem? Only if you don't feel the same. Elena kissed him again, her answer, clearer than any words could be.